article in Truth Out in early January that lays out much of what I'm going to share with you. So if any of this, if I get through this too quickly and you want a reference or some of this to share with someone, I'm happy to share the link with anyone, or you could just Google my name in Truth Out. It was published, I think, on January 6th. So there was an article in the Washington Post just yesterday about a new concern about police body cameras that is now, apparently others have started to catch on, namely that while we get police body cameras around the country, will the public ever see any of the footage? I'm going to jump ahead to the end and then give you the layout. If we have police body cameras and you can't see the footage, that is worse than where we are starting from, right? Body cameras will put more people in prison. They will justify stops and uses of force that would otherwise be illegal, and they will not ensure accountability, particularly because they will attempt to offer transparency into incidents while A, failing to deliver, B, not giving any transparency into patterns and practices, and most importantly, accountability will not be there. So let's walk through all that. The reason people in the rights community and in the Black Lives Matter movement, the reason some people favor police body cameras chronologically started with Mike Brown, because the facts of his death were in dispute and a police body camera might have helped expose it. It's absolutely true, and I will concede at the outset that in some instances, police body cameras might enable justice for grieving parents. The counterpoint to that, there are two. The first is two words, Eric Garner, right? You can have a video of police murdering someone in broad daylight using a force method that was already deemed illegal, viewed by millions of people around the world, and still not get accountability, right? Footage does not equal accountability. That's Eric Garner. The second problem here, and this is a frequent problem in the law, the interests of individuals that are impacted by discrete abuses can diverge from the interests of the communities they come from. In the 1990s, a lot of community activists pushed for harsher drug sentencing laws because there was a crime wave in a lot of urban communities. What did we get out of that? Mass incarceration, right? This would not be the first time that calls for accountability from communities get played by the system and blow back into abuses that are worse than what we dealt with at the outright. So some of the reasons cameras will not promise or won't deliver on their promise for transparency. The first, they're not always on, right? To the extent officers have opportunities to determine when they are on versus off, that's slippage. Second, police will edit footage on the rare instance that it is ever forced out of their hands. California, interestingly enough, recently passed a law prohibiting police from looking at camera footage. That's interesting, right? That's the kind of reform that starts to twist body cameras into maybe something helpful. If the police can't doctor the footage or edit it or selectively zoom in or zoom out to obscure the facts that are of interest to people, and you actually get to see the footage, then maybe we're talking about something useful. But as long as they can control when the cameras are on or off, whether or not it has to be disclosed, and if it is disclosed, how it's edited, all of those three things suggest that what you will get from the body cameras is not the transparency you're looking for. There is a fourth problem, thank you, which is that the policy, as I understand it, allows video evidence to be purged, often before a resulting investigation will be completed, which is to say, before I was talking about the CIA's torture scandal around the world, that's exactly what happened there. There were videotapes of the CIA murdering people. All of those videotapes conveniently disappeared between the time that they were captured and somebody asked for them. You can expect the same thing to happen when those cameras are in the hands of police. Second, pattern and practices, that's where the action's at. Discrete incidents are obviously problematic. Where communities are impacted is where there are patterns and practices of profiling and brutality. Cameras cannot capture that. What would capture that, and what you're not hearing about, is the End Racial Profiling Act. Anybody want to guess when it almost passed Congress? 2001, with the support of the Bush administration. It didn't even get a hearing in the last Congress, and the Obama administration has not ever once publicly even mentioned the bill. That might feel very uncomfortable. That is the reality. And what the End Racial Profiling Act would do are two things. The first is record data about the racial impacts of stops frisks, uses of force, uses of deadly force. The second thing it would do is create a right of action so people could sue based on the statistics. At the moment, federal law is very permissive. That's why the police accountability standards have to be strengthened. You have to prove the intent of an officer to discriminate in order to state a claim under the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. The End Racial Profiling Act would reverse that so that the statistics alone would be evidence of a violation. The End Racial Profiling Act and local equivalents of it, one of which I'll speak about later on, those are meaningful solutions to start reclaiming civil rights. Arming police with new weapons supplied by corporate defense manufacturers is not the answer. The last thing I'll say, Taser Corporation, the leading manufacturer of police body cameras, was just the subject of an expose by the Miami Herald, suggesting that in the several years since tasers were rolled out across that police department, they've become tools of extrajudicial punishment. I don't think that filling the coffers of a weapons manufacturer whose tools have already been used to oppress communities is a pathway to liberation. Thanks for having me.